Please. Please, I can't breathe. Please, man. Please, somebody help me. Ah. Ah.
When I originally heard about George Floyd, I was, of course, on Facebook scrolling, and I saw a still of him being on the ground, an officer on the back of his neck. That was early on in the morning. I went about my day and came back home, and it was around 8 o'clock when I think it hit me. And I just texted some people and said, there's another one.
We report again tonight on the fatal shooting of Ahmaud
Rallies
Arbery.
across
This
this
case
country,
is
they are
perhaps
shouting another name as well.
So much
Breonna Taylor,
into the
who would have
death of
turned
George
27
Floyd and the
Tests
new
in some
details
75
about
American cities after the death of a black man in police custody.
2 weeks prior to learning about George Floyd, we learned about Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and took those really hard. And so all I was thinking was, I'm not really ready to deal with another one. One of the ones that really hurt me, it was a few years back with Philando Castile, and he was stopped with his girlfriend and their daughter in the back. She was 3 or 4 and had his hands on the wheel. And the police officer walked up and he said, I want you to know that I have a gun and I have the permit to carry. Is it okay if I get it? He went to go grab it and the police officer shot him because he was scared. How were you scared in that moment? Who knows? So that happens. The police officer's not charged. There's nothing that happens. So it's this reoccurring thing of police are getting away with killing Black people. I have asked God, really, what is my place? In the beginning, I was very angry, right? Like everybody should be. We're all angry and we have the righteous anger. And as protests were starting to happen, I asked the Lord, I said, should I be at the protests? Because, honestly, I'm Black and I'm a woman and I should be standing with the people and I should fight for this. But really praying about it and asking the Lord, it just didn't feel like, hey, you need to be in the middle of the protest. You need to be doing this. And I firmly believe in finding your lane and asking God, what is my purpose in these moments? Some people are called to go out and protest, and that has to happen. We see that things are actually happening with the protests. Some people are called to pray, which I believe it starts there. We all need to be praying. No matter what you're called to, everybody should be called to prayer. For me, it was praying and then grieving and then starting to have difficult conversations. When we talk about racism, right now, we're talking about institutionalized racism, systematic racism. We're talking about the actual system that is killing Black people. There are so many, if you look up the killings that have happened with Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery was very different because he was hunted in the street and they were not police. But the fact that it took 2 months until something finally happened is ridiculous. And then this latest one with George Floyd, we see that Black people die by the hands of police and there's no repercussions. You have George Floyd, you see, his criminal record. The criminal record does not matter because in that moment, the police officer became the law. He became the trial, the execution, and that's not okay. That's not how our justice system works. We live in America and I'm so grateful to live here. But as an American, I have the right to go to trial and be judged by a jury of my peers. These people aren't getting that. They're getting killed by the police and the police are getting off. Throughout this moment that we're in, it's brought up conversations with my mom and my brother. And I asked my mom questions of, Mom, did we have the race talk? Did you sit down and tell us how to act? And we realized that she didn't really have to have those conversations with me, but she had them with my brother. So my brother was not allowed to have cornrows. He had to make sure his pants were pulled up. He had always had to have a haircut. Like there's just different things that he had to do to make sure that people can perceive him as someone who is a troublemaker. My mom didn't want to give that appearance off. Like if you thought he was a troublemaker, it was going to be because you thought that, not necessarily because he looked the part or even acted the part. So my mom was just saying, yeah, I never dropped you guys off the mall. I never left you anywhere in junior high and high school. I never let you do that because you couldn't be a part of that. And it was just a worry. And these are things I didn't even realize some things are just instilled in us. Like, I didn't realize that that was something that my mom did. I thought it was just something people did. But realizing, no, that's just something we could not do. And seeing how my mom and my brother are reacting to this moment and realizing their experiences are very different from mine. My mom is 50 years old, but she's had to live through so much, and she has her own stories. And my brother, as a Black man, he has his own stories. And just hearing that in this moment here, just, I think, reminds us of really what the world could possibly think of us. There are these things called microaggressions. You know, the word micro just means small. And so those are just small ways that people can be prejudiced. And you have to be careful in the way that people are talking about racism, because if you were looking in the definition of racism years ago, you would just see it's institutionalized. So it's through the system. But now when people talk about racism, they mean prejudice and discrimination. So you just want to be careful on what racism means in the context that you're talking about. For this, we can talk about prejudice and times where I have been discriminated against. But microaggressions, just small. And they're things that you just wouldn't really think until somebody tells you, hey, that actually is kind of offensive. So for me, I'm lighter complected than the rest of my family, and my hair is different. And so oftentimes I'd go places, and one of the first questions people would ask me is, are you mixed? Are you half white, half Black? Are you half Hispanic, half Black? And I kept having to fight for, no, I'm full Black. Are you sure? And so giving that question of, are you sure? Like, I didn't know who I was. And that was something I struggled with, like up until probably like my freshman year of college, of just trying to figure out, like, no, I am fully Black and this is okay. My hair is different. So people would say, oh, you have good hair. Well, good is a comparative word, right? So if I have good hair, anybody Black that does not have hair like mine has bad hair. So just growing up thinking like, oh, I'm better than them because my hair, no one compliments on you on your hair. They compliment me on my hair and how good it is, and yours is bad. There's one that I do not remember, thank goodness, but my mom told me this story because people would compliment on my complexion, and they would say, oh man, your skin tone's so pretty, you're so light, it's so pretty. And my brother is darker than me, and I think I was about 8 years old. To my own brother, I said, hey, you're really dark. Like, you're so dark, like, I'm better than you. And my mom just went off. Again, I don't remember the story, but it's the people saying things over me. It's hard because you think like, can I compliment your hair? Yes, you can. I have nice hair. I have really pretty hair. I've learned to love my hair, not because it's good hair, but just because it's my hair and I love it. So those are little microaggressions, you know, and they start building up and they start building up. Bigger ways that I had experienced racism was even in high school. My senior year of high school, man, these kids stole my pencil pouch, and I love my pencils and my pens, and I had asked for it back, and one kid looked at me and said, no, N-word, and I said, whoa, you cannot call me that. And he said, well, you're not allowed to be offended anymore of that word. And I just stared at him thinking like, who are you to tell me I can't be offended? He was not Black. No one, another kid had joined him, and no one was stopping him. My teacher was out that day, so we had a sub, and he didn't do anything. And I remember just thinking, why would you call me out of my name? And why would you call me that? I didn't, and I asked for you not to call me that. And he said, I'm not allowed to be offended. And in that moment, you want to speak up for yourself and you want to do something, but you kind of just freeze. And so I remember freezing, then giving my pencil pouch back, and my mom picked me up, and I just bawled in the car. And then to make it worse, like the story that kept going. So I get in my mom's car. My mom sees that I'm very frustrated. We go into the principal's office, talk to the principal. 2 of them get ISS, and it had gone all around the whole entire high school. And so, you know, you have powder puff. And so that's the girls play football, and you have seniors versus juniors or something like that. And I had signed up to play, but I didn't make it to the game, but they wanted to give me my shirt. And so the shirt, they got to pick out all of the names that go on the back of your shirt. And they chose MLK for me. And I looked at them and thought, like, why would you choose this name? And they said, you know, because you don't like the N-word. And I just thought, oh my goodness, again. So now you give me the shirt that reminds me of who I am, or who you think that I am, like what you called me. And it reminds me of that moment. So those are big moments and small moments in my life where I experienced prejudice, racism, discrimination. I actually work for Every Nation, which I do campus ministry for. So that just means I go on the college campus in San Antonio and I teach people about the gospel. I disciple people and I teach them how to share the gospel with other people and to have a relationship with him. And what does that look like? So most of the time when I talk, it is in this way of having a heart for people. And throughout this time, even just seeing that there are Christians or people who follow Christ, who call themselves Christ followers, who don't want to believe that racism exists, who don't want to believe that something is going on in America and that this has actually been around for hundreds of years. And that's what's the hardest moment for me. For me, it's not the people who don't know who Christ is, because once you know who Christ is, your eyes are open. And so for people who say, oh, I don't see color, God's people, I think you are missing out. I heard someone say God created all of these different cultures and ethnicities so that no one image can contain who God is. That's how amazing he is. So he had to create all of this different span of people, different ethnicities and cultures. And so we get to see him in this beautiful light. And God does not have a color, right? Because he is not a man. But we get to see the creativity of who he is. And so to say I don't see color, to say that I don't want to look at that, is to say I don't want to see more of who God is. So you're missing out, one, on who God is. But to say I don't believe in racism is to actually just say I want to remain ignorant. I don't want to learn about hurting people. I don't want the burden of that. So if you think, man, racism doesn't exist, I say have a conversation with somebody that does not have the same viewpoint as you. Have a conversation so you can hear their experiences. And even if you think, like, I go to the church with Black people, ask them what they truly think and what they've been going through. And to say, I don't think I'm racist, well, obviously it depends on what the racist definition is, right? But if you say, I don't have any prejudices, you're automatically wrong. There is stuff that because of media, because of the world that we've grown up in, they have unconscious biases in us. Like, we are unaware of things until somebody points it out. So just asking yourself and asking God is there. Search me, O Lord, right? Search me. If there's any wrong ways in me, reveal it to me. If there's any way that I have not loved people who are not my ethnicity, who are not my culture, show me so I can love them better. There was a time about a week ago that I got overwhelmed with this burden to pray for the church. Because the church, in all honesty, as a whole has been silent. And we say the church as in the church that I go to or the church that I grew up in, but the church as a whole, the body. We've just been silent for too long to a hurting, oppressed people. And it's time. You have to move. I believe, honestly, that God is looking out and saying, it is time. Church, arise. There is this issue and you have to be a part of the solution. You can't be a part of the problem anymore. And so I remember praying and crying, believing that God is, you know how you sift out wheat and you sift out sugar and stuff, and you try and get the clumps out or whatever. That's what's happening in the church, is God is trying to see who are his people, who are the ones that love him, who are the ones willing to pick up their cross, to die to themselves daily, to put aside their opinions and their fighting to be right, for fighting to love one another. So I think that's what's happening, is we're going to see the beauty of the body arise. And it's going to be beautiful, but it's also going to be really painful. And we're going to see people who we thought really loved the Lord and really knew him. And we're going to see them and maybe think, wow, man, I didn't know them as well as I thought that they did. And we're going to see people who find out they didn't know God as well as they thought that they did. And so church, it's time. It's time to start fighting. It's time to start listening. It's time to start being there for the oppressed people, specifically in this moment, the Black community. There are so many oppressed people, but right now in this moment, let's be there for the Black community. How do you do that? Because it's so hard. Everybody wants something different, but it's listening, hearing experiences, hearing what people have gone through, and letting them be a place, opening your space up so you can be a safe place. In these times, I honestly, truly feel bad for those who do not know the gospel. And it gives me such a great mission to share the gospel, because if I didn't have Jesus, I would honestly say racism will never end. We will be in this place forever, and it's just going to be a cycle. Next month, we'll hear about another shooting that happens, and it's always going to happen. And I can easily slip into this moment of hating white people, of wanting to just say, you have oppressed us for too long, and I don't want to be a part of you. And I don't want to fight to have a relationship with you. I don't want to educate you. I don't want to help you understand. But God, right? Because I serve a God of miracles, because Jesus, for some reason, decided to come down to earth and live this amazing life that we could have never lived. And he died this death that we were actually supposed to die. And he rose again. And he gives us this opportunity to say, do you want to believe in me? Do you want to follow me? Because I follow that Jesus, because I believe in that God, I have to say, yes, it will end. Will it end in my generation? I don't think so. But I think that my generation will be a part of it ending. We're going to see it. I believe that the church is rising up. And so I speak with great hope in saying, like, every day we're taking a step forward so that racism will not be around with my grandkids. And my kids won't have to go through the things that my generation went through, my mom, my grandma. And so I speak from that point, and it is hard. But one thing that I love about Black culture is that we have it ingrained in us, the spirituality, to believe in God, to believe in Jesus. I was watching a video, and Dr. Anita read a prayer that slaves prayed. And one of them prayed, God, please bless my slave master. And that about took me out, that you're praying that God would bless your slave master. She asked, God, would you reveal in me ways that I can love them better? So for me, I believe that there's something in the Black community, there's something instilled in us that we want to know God, and we want to see God, and we have this relationship with God deep, deep, deep in us. And so there's always this calling out to God where I call out to him, and I believe that he can do it. He can do it. He can move. And so every day I wake up with a new hope that God is going to move in a greater way. And so that's what I hold on to. That's my firm foundation. Facebook is not something I hold on to. People that I thought believe this and are actually believing this are not what I hold on to. But I believe that God can do great things, and that he is going to tear down these walls. And it starts with the church, and it's going to leak out of us as a body, and it's going to go to other people. And so, yes, I believe it's going to end, and I'm going to live that way, and I'm going to speak that way, and I'm going to proclaim it, because I serve a God of miracles. And I believe that when we see racism end, when my grandkids see it and my great-grandkids see it, they're going to know that their grandma and great-grandma really believed this, and that I was a part of the belief. And I think that the church is a part of that too, that we are going to call out racism, that we are going to move the ball forward. So yeah, I think it's going to end. It is going to end.